Joe Rogan and Kissen weighed in on the wrongful deportation of a Venezuelan migrant who was sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador, with ICE claiming that he was a member of Tren de Aragua. However, it appears that is not the case. In fact, he wasn't even in the United States illegally. He was here legally. He had a legitimate asylum claim. He came in through a port of entry and made that asylum claim. And his name's Andre Hernandez. He's a gay makeup artist who's been—
Strap in, because this next story isn't just shocking. It's blowing up the internet. Joe Rogan and Kasparian, yeah, you heard that right, somehow ended up on the same side of an immigration issue. And what they're saying is rattling the political spectrum. The story? A Venezuelan asylum seeker named Andre Hernandez, openly gay, a makeup artist, was wrongfully deported under Trump's immigration crackdown and thrown into a maximum security prison in El Salvador. Why? Because ICE agents saw his tattoos of his mom and dad with crowns and decided they were gang signs. That's not satire. That actually happened. No trial, no legal process, nothing. Just bam, ripped from the US and tossed into a prison full of violent offenders. This isn't just about policy anymore. This is what it looks like when federal power goes unchecked. Joe Rogan even went after Kissen for defending it, and Kasparian's response? A brutal takedown that might be one of the hardest-hitting critiques of Trump's immigration agenda yet. Even conservative voices are stepping back and saying, wait, this went too far. So in today's breakdown, we're unpacking how a peaceful asylum seeker became the victim of a system run wild, why both the left and parts of the center-right are united in outrage, and what this means for Trump's 2024 narrative. Stick around. This story has the power to shake up MAGA talking points, flip the script on the immigration debate, and shine a spotlight on an abuse of authority you were never supposed to hear about.
You got to get scared that people who are not criminals are getting, like, lassoed up and deported and sent to, like, El Salvador prisons.
With a bunch of these Tren de Aragua guys, allegedly they got at least one guy who wasn't a criminal, who was just a gay barber who I think, according to the story, came here legally. He was here legally. That's what they said.
Joe Rogan and Kissen weighed in on the wrongful deportation of a Venezuelan migrant who was sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador, with ICE claiming that he was a member of Tren de Aragua. However, it appears that is not the case. In fact, he wasn't even in the United States illegally. He was here legally. He had a legitimate asylum claim. He came in through a port of entry and made that asylum claim. And his name's Andre Hernandez. He's a gay makeup artist who's been an outspoken critic of Venezuela. And I just feel like it's pretty obvious he's not a Tren de Aragua gang member.
Yeah, they don't even allow gay people into the gang. So among 1,000 reasons why he's not a gang member. So this is what happens when you don't do due process.
Exactly.
Because the courts are supposed to check. Oh, is he a gang member or isn't he? Oh, is he undocumented or isn't he? Did he come here legally or not? Because if you don't check, you get people who did come here legally and that aren't in a gang. And that's why, like, if he did this without doing it in a dumb way, and he just rounded up the actual gang and made sure, then shipped him off. Some people would still be mad that he's sending him to a hellhole in El Salvador, but overall the American people would be massively on his side.
Yeah, and look, okay? I want to be 100% clear. Everyone, including individuals who are suspected of being gang members, and there's actual evidence, showing that they're part, doesn't matter. You need to go through the proper channels. There needs to be due process. There's a reason why due process exists. And if you think it's okay to just throw it away when it comes to individuals who the federal government is simply accusing unilaterally of doing something criminal, well, I mean, you're really allowing so much power to be concentrated in the federal government to the point where they can accuse anyone of anything. And you don't get your day in court. That's crazy. That is absolutely insane.
In a chilling and eye-opening discussion, Joe Rogan sat down with British commentator Konstantin Kissen and, yes, Anna Kasparian, to break down a case that strikes at the heart of everything America claims to stand for. The topic? Andre Hernandez, a Venezuelan migrant who followed every rule in the book. He came through a legal port of entry, filed a legitimate asylum claim, and asked for protection from political persecution. But instead of a fair hearing, Andre was snatched from U.S. soil and thrown into a maximum security prison in El Salvador. Not a holding center, a prison full of violent gang leaders and terrorists. And the reason? Tattoos. That's it. Tattoos of his mom and dad under 2 crowns, which ICE agents claimed were gang-related. Let that sink in. This is a gay makeup artist who had publicly criticized the Maduro regime. No ties to any gang, no violent history, and 0 evidence of criminal involvement. Yet ICE labeled him a gang member based on body art and disappeared him. It's like Kafka, if Kafka wore a red baseball cap. What makes this story even more striking is who's calling it out. Rogan and Kissen aren't progressive icons. Rogan's been linked to the populist right, and Kissen has clashed with Anna Kasparian on hot-button culture issues. But here, they were united. Both men called it terrifying, unjust, and deeply un-American. Kissen warned about the dangerous incentives inside federal agencies, how mistakes get buried instead of corrected. Rogan didn't hold back either, calling it insane that a legal migrant could be dropped in a foreign prison without a single shred of due process. Together, they made it clear. The issue isn't about deporting criminals. It's about a system that's now sweeping up the innocent, and no one's being held accountable.
He had sought asylum in the United States through a port of entry, but the Trump administration argues that he's part of Tren de Aragua because he has gang tattoos. Oh, interesting. So, they make the claim. I want to see the gang tattoos. Maybe they have a legitimate argument here. Here's what the tattoos look like. Here are the tattoos that ICE declared were evidence that, this guy, gay makeup artist who came to a port of entry seeking asylum from Venezuela was a member of a vicious gang. I'm not making this up. This is it. Mom and dad with crowns over them. Those are not gang tattoos. But apparently it didn't matter because despite the fact that it's obvious those aren't gang tattoos, his lawyers have not been able to reach him since March 15th. And after interviewing him, he says he is not a member of the gang. Somehow an ICE officer concludes that despite all that, his 2 crown tattoos and mom and dad written under them are consistent with those of a Tren de Aragua member.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. They're just lying. So with that context in mind, and knowing that this is what Rogan and Kissen are talking about, let's hear more of what they had to say.
I think a human being being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen to me.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
I don't think that should be controversial.
No, that's not controversial at all. And this is the thing, measured twice, cut once. This is kind of crazy that could be possible. That's horrific. And that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is, let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs. And then, how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out? Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake and correct it?
Well, if you think about it from a government perspective, and this is where I think it gets quite sinister, is once you've done that, the incentive structure is never going to be to admit that and deal with it. The incentive structure is to say nothing, to cover it up, to pretend it didn't happen.
But
right?
That is horrible.
So someone ends up in a black hole. But we've seen it. We've seen it in every country, including in America.
But that's the thing about politics, right? Never admit your fault. Never admit you're wrong.
It's so dumb.
And this is the thing we're seeing with the signal thing, and this is the thing we're seeing with this.
And, there seems to be more frustration with the lack of accountability or the willingness to take responsibility for mistakes made. So far, we haven't heard anything from the Trump administration in regard to this specific individual who was sent away. But you should know that we have so far spent about $40 million to send migrants to El Salvador's CICOT. And that's according to the State Department. They apparently did an analysis and provided that analysis to senators. There was a delegation of 5 senators who even visited. I'm sorry, that's for Gitmo. So we've spent $40 million to jail 400 migrants at Guantanamo Bay. So it's not just El Salvador. We're also sending them to Guantanamo Bay. But that has become so expensive that the Trump administration quietly stopped doing that. And they actually sent about half of those 400 migrants back to the United States because of how costly it was. But I should also note that we've been paying El Salvador as well. The last time it was reported, we spent about $6 million to send migrants.
That's when Anna Kasparian came in swinging with the legal facts. She broke down a recent decision from U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy, who just threw a wrench into the Trump-era strategy of quietly deporting migrants to third countries without even a courtroom glance. Judge Murphy's ruling was clear. No migrant, guilty or not, can be expelled without written notice, and the legal right to request protection under the UN Convention Against Torture, which the U.S. signed back in 1994. Apparently, the Trump administration was trying to sidestep those protections, and now the courts are finally slamming on the brakes. But here's where it gets even messier, the money trail. According to the same discussion, the Trump administration spent over $6 million to deport people to El Salvador and threw down $40 million more holding detainees at Guantanamo Bay. Many of those deported ended up coming back because the costs were sky high. Think about that. We're using taxpayer dollars to ship off people who may not have even broken the law and then paying more to bring them back. It's not just a human rights failure. It's a financial disaster. And why? To win headlines? To build the illusion of control? While basic freedoms get bulldozed. If you're a conservative who cares about limited government, this should enrage you. If you're a progressive who values human dignity, it's downright disgraceful. And if you're just someone who believes in fairness and accountability, this should leave you shaking your head. Let's be clear, this isn't about liking or hating Trump. It's about whether we're okay living in a country where innocent people can be disappeared with zero due process. Andre Hernandez didn't sneak in. He followed the rules, sought asylum legally, and ended up trapped in a prison cell overseas based on tattoos of his parents. That's not law and order. That's a nightmare masquerading as policy. And the fact that Joe Rogan, Kasparian, Kissen, and Anna Kasparian, 3 voices from very different corners, are calling this out, that's rare. And it means the alarm bells are ringing across the board. If we can't unite to stop this kind of abuse, then seriously, what are we even doing? Whether you're red, blue, or somewhere in the middle, this moment should snap you awake. We need accountability. We need a system that respects innocence. And we need to stand up and say loud and clear, this stops. Now, if you feel that, do me a solid, hit that like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Is this just one awful story or a sign of something deeper, more dangerous?